I would like to draw your particular attention to the statement, the need to mainstream lakes and other Atlantic waters within the global water agenda, which has been developed jointly by the UNEP and ILEC. It is our wish that this statement will be able to provide the international community with a basis for active and constructive discussions at the important global fora, such as UNEP-5 and the 9th World Water Forum to be held in early next year. In light of this, I would like to seek your further cooperation by sharing with you the following three objectives of this session, namely, to broadly share an overview of the statement, which as I have extended before, to exchange the experience and lessons learned in policy development on ILBM around the world, and to jointly build the momentum toward the upcoming global fora, in particular, UNEP 5.2.
And we expect, in terms of mainstreaming outcomes from session discussions here, to be included in some manner in the Vanuatu Declaration and being used as ammunition or background, whatever you want to call it, support for this effort at the upcoming United Nations Environmental Assembly number 5, which is going to be held in February, just in a couple of months at UNEP headquarters. And we say this because lake management has been introduced for the first time for discussion at UNEA. And the theme of UNEA is strengthening actions for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's very timely. And the significance of this is that the United Nations now is starting, or will hopefully discuss the need for managing lakes and recognize them specifically for their ecosystem services and for the vast quantity of water they contain and how sensitive they are to degradation, misuse, and pollution. And we also expect we will be issuing a mainstreaming lakes call to action discussion item at the 9th World Water Forum, which actually follows the UNEA 5 component by 1 month. It's going to be held in Dakar, Senegal, with the theme Water Security for Peace and Development. So we have the possibility now of mainstreaming lakes. We're getting support for it, more and more support all the time, which we're very pleased with. And what comes out of here, we're going to put in the declaration in some form, and we're also going to use it for ammunition for UNEA 5.
We are very interested. We are working nationally, binationally, regionally, and we want to have more visibility, more attention to international resources. I have participated in the first assembly of the United Nations Environment Program, and I have been a representative for Latin America, and we are very interested in this because it has to do with the reality of the daily life that depend on the health of these ecosystems, because it's the same health of the people and health of the ecosystem. So we are going to work on initiatives so that the next assembly of the United Nations will be the second part of this 5th assembly. We hope to promote cooperation processes that are much more effective. Thank you very much. For SDG 6.3.2 percentage of good water for the water region of River Lempa, we can see that 64% of the water is good and 36% of the water does not have good quality. Something important to mention here is that to be able to assess the quality of the surface water, it's very important to include rivers and lakes, because if we do not include lakes, we cannot have a whole vision of the quality of water, nor can we have a comprehensive management of our water resources. That's why we think that it's very important to include the assessment of all the different lentic and lotic water within the assessment of surface water.
We actively involved in Global Forum on Lake Management. Recently, we are proposing a draft of resolution on sustainable lake management in the upcoming UNEP 5.2 and inviting support from all countries and international organizations. The resolution kindly encourages all countries to implement protection, restoration, and wise use of lake by involving all stakeholders and integrated in development planning. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, finally, herewith, we really support ILEC and UNEP calls for mainstreaming lakes and wetlands in the global water agenda and sustainable development goals, and for our collaboration on sustainable lake management. We believe that our effort can make better future of our lake ecosystem, our people, and for the destiny of the next generation.
In conclusion, Japan has long history and experience to implement lake basin management. That is almost the same as ILBM concept. And Japanese government also welcome UNEP and ILEC's effort to mainstreaming ILBM internationally. And we expect to widen the understanding through this special session as well, and also upcoming World Water Forum and UNEP.
The international webinar was held on October 27, 2020, with special focus on lake basin management initiatives in Asia and Africa.
And maybe that goes to say that mainstreaming is really still needed across sectoral frameworks in a very significant way. But that can't be said without also acknowledging that there is so many relevant commitments in place at the global, at the regional, and at the national levels. I speak about the Convention on Wetlands. I don't think it's the only one under which those provisions do exist. And because of that, there's also a very, very significant effort underway at multiple levels, and certainly by governments around the world. So in relation to sort of mainstreaming, enhancing governance in general, putting in place the frameworks that can lead to better lake management and better stewardship of those critical resources, it needs to be really fully cognizant of and leverage and build on those frameworks that are in place.
What are we going to do here? We are really looking for the solutions for lake management challenges, just what was pointed out in the last talks. Also, this is what we want to tackle in those 10 countries. It's going to be about biodiversity-friendly agriculture and tourism. Mainly, we will have senior working groups with senior advisors, participatory monitoring. We will try to create market opportunities. It's a lot about financing these days, about making bankable the project of our partners.
And you will ask, why SIL endorses the 18th World Lake Conference? Well, the reason is that there is a very good match between the aims of the conference and the SIL mission. The mission of our society is promoting excellence in studying and managing inland waters and addressing global issues. And our strategic priorities reflect this, not only that we want developing international scientific networks, but we want also developing and maintaining partnerships for sustainable management of freshwater ecosystems. And we want contributing to addressing global environmental and societal issues through a strategic alignment with the UN Sustainable Developmental Goals.
I will give you this. So we always focus on the transboundary aspects. So multi-sectorial, multidisciplinarity, and cooperation, of course. These are our, if you will, our guiding principles. The other things that are part of this mix would be inclusion. It's extremely important for all our investments that we not only engage with private and public sector, but also the CSO community. Gender mainstreaming and gender action plans are luckily getting more attention. We have done it for many years, more than 15 years, but I think it's getting recognition it needs to get. I mean, going back 30 years, you could actually see investments in river basins that may not have an environmental impact assessment. Today, that's impossible. You can't even build a sport dirt road without making an environmental impact assessment.
Wetlands are declining fast, with 35% losses since 1970, where we have data. I want to emphasize this point. This sort of percentage losses are only where we have the information. There are areas we do not have the information, and we cannot extrapolate safely beyond the data itself. But it is a fast rate where we have such information. Wetland plants and animals are in crisis, with a quarter of species at risk of extinction. The quality of remaining wetlands is also suffering due to drainage, pollution, invasive species, unsustainable use, disrupted water flows, and climate change. This one here takes us to policy. The convention has also encouraged countries to develop national wetland policies. A bit over half the number of countries have national wetland policies or are developing policies. COP13 for the Ramsar Convention, the most recent data from that's 2018, just shows, it is about half the number of countries. So there's a lot of room for improvement and to help countries get this. A key policy issue is shown here. So under many policy structures, countries try to avoid, mitigate, or compensate the damages. Well, they use different words sometimes, but this is a general scheme. For climate change, we're now stating that for climate change, it's too late to avoid many impacts. Some you can still avoid, but not all. So therefore, many countries have to move into the mitigation. How do you contend with the changes from climate change? We have examples we can discuss separately if people are interested. Climate experts have warned that temperatures have been increasing, as are sea levels. This graph is about 20 years old. It is showing from about 20 years old the modelled projections of temperatures, global temperatures. We are into the range, those increases now. In many parts of the world, we're seeing the temperature increases which were modelled and predicted 20 odd years ago, but not necessarily believed or taken on board by governments. Climate change is real. We have the evidence. Climate increases, temperature increases, changing climate patterns, and sea level rise. It's really, how do we respond? One of the outcomes of climate change in particular is that many of our past baseline conditions for restoration and managing may not be relevant for the future. The climate has changed, the hydrology has changed so much. Can we restore or manage to a past ecological condition? In many cases, we cannot. We may be able to in some if we invest, but in many cases, we won't have that opportunity. So therefore, what is the future of our wetlands and the services we get from wetlands under climate change? I think it's a question that still needs to be answered.
The precipitation stimulates this phenomenon, but also the global warming and the drought season can increase the stability of water, and then we promote much more algal blooms, cyanobacterial blooms, contaminate its concentrate in these systems, so also decrease the water quality and the erosion process and the waste disposal. All these anthropic impacts can be influenced for extreme climate events, and it's result in water quality degradation in our Atlantic systems. But we have some gaps that we need to face to control the eutrophication mainly in Latin America. First of all, we need to have a good background and well-established data set to design a very good monitoring and manage program. We only can do something knowing well the data we have in the past. We need to know the past to construct a better future for our ecosystem. So we need historical records and local acknowledgement. Usually in Latin America, we pay attention when some phenomena or some tragedy happen. And then we stopped to pay attention because other tragedy happened in another place, and then we stopped the monitoring records. And the local knowledge is also forgotten. Also, there are techniques for management and control the biological and chemical contaminants for different economic scenarios, even sustainable techniques. We need to apply this knowledge to manage and control our eutrophication process. Therefore, in my opinion, there is not so much academic challenge, and it's already been overdone in many cases. So, what is missing? Why we continue to see eutrophication process grow and growing decades after decades, mainly close the metropolitan areas, agricultural areas in Latin America? Well, we are not so good in translation of knowledge. We need to sit down. We need to listen each other, mainly listen each other. We need to know each other. It's a multidisciplinary issues. We need to pay attention in different areas that need to be considered to improve these systems and what we can do together. It's impossible only one sector to solve this problem in anywhere. And also, we need political will.
Now, the following are observations which we have derived from the projects and activities. There is still a significant lack of information on or lack of information on lake data. Now, of late, the issue of microplastics is coming up, and we're talking about the microplastics which are about 5 millimeters of special concern, because this can be ingested through the food web. And from this is coming also, we're seeing it in rivers, and it's coming from also urban runoff. Then we have got climate change variability, land use changes in the lake basin, nutrient enrichment, invasive species, and habitat and biodiversity loss. These are some of the challenges that we are facing right now. Next, we have seen that the creation and establishment of lake basins organizations to govern and manage lakes at a local and transboundary scale helps a lot to alleviate some of the problems around the lake. Lakes management won't succeed without the foundation to support such pursuits, namely the gradual improvement of overall governance of the basin and beyond. The action on lakes has been pending for, I would say, for more than 20 years since we began working with ILEC. We have seen that emerging challenges should be dealt with through, I would say, policy and management actions. First, focused on controlling the degradation of lakes and wetlands around the world by promoting efforts at the global level, which reach up to the global level in mainstreaming lakes and wetlands as key freshwater components in developing and applying national strategic policies and programs. We also need to develop a global platform for greater cross-fertilization and sharing of data, information, experiences, and lessons learned. And we also need to accelerate the replication of successful national lake basin management practices elsewhere. as discussed, in many meetings, there's need for developing a global platform for adoption and integration of integrated lake basin management principles, which is beginning to pick up momentum, and gradually and incrementally do a sustained improvement of lake basin governance at the national level.